Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio, a place where dreams take flight, with authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives and meaningful conversations, where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover world-class education, entertainment, hope and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our channel, USA Global TV. Download our app, USA Global TV. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. Thanks to our founder and executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang from Cloud Road Music. Voiceover artist Mike Porter. Creative direction by Paul Garcia. USA Global TV and Radio. Your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back to The Holistic Alternative. I am Julian Mejia, and I'm so glad that you're joining us today. Our guest today is a dynamic presence in the world of personal growth, empowerment, and deep emotional healing. She's the host of the popular podcast, Girls Night. She's a certified life coach and the founder of KRC Coaching, where she helps people break through limiting beliefs, embrace radical self-love, and create lives they truly feel excited to wake up to. It is my absolute joy to welcome today's guest, Carly Dockstader, to the show. Carly, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Julian. Hi, everyone. I'm so excited to be joining you for the conversation.
Well, thanks for being here and taking time out of your busy schedule to join me, and I appreciate your presence today. How's your day going so far?
My day is good. It's funny because usually I work from home. Since I do have my own company, I usually work from home. But my sister actually had a baby a couple months ago. And so she had a bunch of doctor's appointments for him. So I ended up coming to her house to help out with the babies beforehand. So a little bit of an unusual day for me, but a great one at that, because I got to see my niece and my nephew as well.
Congratulations on becoming an aunt again. That's so exciting. It's
Thank
always
you, it
nice
is.
to welcome new family members, right?
Oh, always. It's always such a blessing.
So can you tell everyone watching today a little bit about your background and how you got started in the world of coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually wasn't in coaching at first. I actually, outside of college, I started out in sales, which was something I never expected myself to do, just because naturally I tend to be more on the introverted side. When I was in college, I never would have been caught dead speaking in front of a crowd or trying to pitch something to another person. But I kind of fell into the whole sales thing, and I have a long background in tech sales, and I did excel in that pretty quickly and made it to the top. But by that point, I really wanted to do something bigger than myself. I wanted to make a bigger impact on the world and on the people around me. And this was something that just really came naturally out of kind of natural talents that I have. And so I started the life coaching business, and I also have the podcast to go along with it to really help make the biggest impact for people that want to make improvements in their lives.
That's
And then here we are.
amazing. No, that's amazing because again, they're very different industries. So
Mhm,
essentially, like you saw the sales for what it was, right? It's
mhm.
unfortunately it's a very materialistic thing, and you
Yes.
wanted to go deeper. So that's
Mhm.
amazing that you brought that service to the world when, again, we're at a time in this world that's really needed. There's a lot of
Yes.
coaching needed and specialized coaching and stuff like that. So let's talk
Yeah.
a little bit about your coaching stuff and who's a good client for you.
Yeah, so a good client for me, I do mostly work with women. I do work with some men, but I would say I work mostly with women, and anywhere from mid-20s to mid-30s, I would say. That's really just kind of in a transitionary period of their life, or they're really just getting to know themselves a little bit better. They're trying to step into their power a little bit more, because I think really that's something that a lot of us are aiming to do now. There's a lot of us that have been living lives that weren't really for us. They were what we thought that we should be doing, or because we thought we would find success with that, or because we would find financial gain from that, which obviously, like, hey, I came from sales. I was in sales for a very financially driven reason. So if you're in any of those transitionary periods where you're just wanting a little bit of help understanding your intrinsic drivers and why you want what you you want what you want and how to kind of get there a little bit smoother, then I'm the girl for you. That's what I can help you with.
No, and that's such a great point that you bring up. There's so many people not living for themselves, right? They're either influenced by their family or they were pushed into some specific business that really didn't resonate with who they are as a human being. So, how do you kind of work through those challenges and kind of deprogramming individuals that have strayed from their true path?
Right. Well, it's interesting because ever since we were kids, I think kids do a really good job of dreaming big. They want to be astronauts and artists and princesses and ballerinas. And then as we get older, people start telling us to be more realistic about what we want and to get something that's going to be a stable job, that's going to be a safe bet. But when you really look at it, I'm of the belief that when you do what you love, when you do what you have a passion for, then the money and the success is going to come naturally. And of course, no matter what you do, there's always going to be roadblocks. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be some form of struggle. So you really get to pick what your struggle is. Do you want to struggle doing something that you hate, or do you want to struggle doing something that you love and that you have a passion for? So I think a really good example of this, of people, the paycheck coming after the passion, are people that are musicians, like artists. Post Malone is coming into my mind for some reason, but people like that, yeah, maybe they're the 1%, but those are the people that are the living proof of it. And so many of them are just the ones that didn't give up. They just gave their full force into what they loved, and then they made it. So that's the biggest thing for me. I think you first start with your mindset. And then I heard on a different show actually recently, somebody was talking about confidence. And we always think that confidence is such a huge part of making these big changes in our lives, or starting to do something that you really love, which true, it is a big part of it. But what comes before confidence, this is a really important step, is just the courage, because you're not going to have confidence about something new until you actually get into the weeds of it and you start doing it and you start failing and you start learning those lessons. But all you really need is the courage to take that first tiny little step, and then those little steps build competency, and then that competency leads to the confidence that says, hey, like, this actually was a really good decision for me.
I think that's perfectly eloquently put. I think half the battle is showing up a lot of times and taking, like you said, that first step. And a lot of people, they have to dig really deep to do that. So you kind of hold their hand and assist them with getting through that step, essentially, right?
Yeah, definitely. So it's the support aspect of it for sure, but also a lot of what we do is that subconscious mindset work, because the way our brains work, even when we logically want something or we logically know which step we should be taking, sometimes there's something in the background that's holding us back, or that's when the self-sabotage starts to come in. It's like when people want to lose weight at the gym, they know that they should go to the gym. They know that they need to do it consistently, but there's just something that ends up kind of getting in the way. And then they wake up a week into it. They're like, oh no, I'm too tired. Or no, I have a busy day today. Or no, I think I'd rather sleep in. That's the self-sabotage coming through, because it's your subconscious programs making a little appearance. Because when you think of the way that your brain works, you've been living your life 10, 20, 30, 50 years, however long, doing everything a certain way. And so that certain way has built a really strong neural pathway. So I like to think of neural pathways kind of being like a trail in the forest. So this is a really well-worn trail. You know exactly where it's going. You've been on it a million times. But when you start to do something new, all of a sudden you're starting from scratch and you're starting to build out a new neural pathway. So it's going to take practice. It's going to take repetition to build that new neural pathway. Just like when you're in the forest, when you're starting to go down a new path, there's going to be bushes and trees and logs that are in the way. But the longer that you're on that path and the more you take that path again, all of a sudden you have a new path that you're taking. So a lot of it is with the mindset work to help you get past those blocks. And so that's a really important part of it. So it's both the combination of the mindset work paired with those action steps that I think make the biggest impact when you are trying to make a change in your life like that.
No, and I think that's a huge point that many people don't even, put the two pieces together. Self-sabotage is a huge thing. What are your thoughts on, how someone can reprogram their brains? Are there certain steps that you recommend taking, certain techniques? What type of techniques do you guys apply during your coaching?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use a combination of EFT, which is emotional freedom technique, and also NLP, which is neuro-linguistic programming. So what neuro-linguistic programming says is basically that language kind of controls our actions and controls our thoughts, and that our thoughts kind of become our reality. So when you're able to change the thoughts that you're having, when you're able to change the language that you're using, then that's when you can make a really big impact. Because again, going back to your mind being like a computer, your thoughts and your language is the programming behind that computer to help reboot it into a new space. But a combination of those, and then emotional freedom technique on the other side too, we're actually using these pressure points on your face, on your body, to help rewire your brain a little bit faster. And emotional freedom technique really focuses more on the emotion that you're feeling, and the goal of it is to bring you to a more neutral place for those really intense emotions that we feel that hold us back. So I like to use a combo of those two modalities mainly in my practice. And then, of course, we're pairing all of that with those practical action steps that we can take and actually feel reasonable to us personally, not what the next person thinks that we should be doing or what we think the next person thinks that we should be doing. I hope that made sense.
No, that makes perfect sense. And, furthermore to your point, how does trauma play into a lot of people's actions? Have you seen that personally
Mhm.
with some of your coaching?
Oh, yeah. I feel like when we have traumas kind of run the show sometimes, right? If you have not taken the time that you need to actually address the traumas that you're having, then there's going to be those residual things that happen in the background. And a really good way to think of it is comparing it to a physical wound. So let's say you break your arm, that's a physical trauma on your body. If you just leave your arm there, like sure, it might heal, but it'll probably heal in a way that your arm isn't functional anymore, or it doesn't work in the way that it used to work, or that it's not supposed to work. So it could just come with complications. But if you get this trauma and then you go to a specialist, you go to a doctor and they reset it and it heals properly how it's supposed to, then all of a sudden you're going to regain function of this arm. And at that point, the arm might be a little bit stronger because it has the extra like calcification from the break repairing itself. But our emotional wounds are exactly the same. So when you get an emotional trauma like that, and we all have them, sometimes they're micro traumas and sometimes they're these really big traumas. Some people call them big T and little t traumas. When we have those traumas, a lot of people just try to hide them and push them under the rug. But when you try to push them under the rug, then they're still kind of festering there in the background. So it's not until you actually take a really good look at them and say, hey, what is this trying to show me? What is this trying to teach me? What is my body trying to tell me? And why does this situation feel unsafe to me? Because our whole bodies, our whole brain, our biology is really just trying to keep us safe. And sometimes our safe isn't actually what's best for us in the long term, but it feels safe because it feels familiar. So when we understand that pattern, we can actually use our traumas to our benefit, and they can actually kind of become our superpowers, right? Because when you've been through a trauma and when you know how to heal from it and when you know how to get to the other side, just like that broken arm, you're going to be stronger on the other side because of it. And then you can actually use that to propel you forward in a bunch of different areas. So traumas, yeah, they definitely affect us, but they don't have to be the big, bad, scary thing that people think that they are.
No, I think that's great to put it that way because again, we are not conducive of everything that's happened in our lives and it doesn't have to define us. So I think
Right.
those are really important points. So say someone, in their 30s, like they're transitioning, they want to start fresh with you. Let's walk through what a typical coaching engagement might be like.
Right, absolutely. So, right off the bat, right on the first of the call, we're going to first dive a little bit into what their lifestyle is like, a little bit about what their childhood was like. So, mom, dad, were they present in the picture? Did you have any siblings? Maybe if there was any alcohol or drug abuse, just questions like that, so we can get a baseline of, hey, like this is your experience. These are things that affect us all, right? I'm a middle child. That affects me. I'm going to have different experiences than my older sister did and my younger brother did, even though we were in the same family. So all of those little things matter. And then we're going to focus in on why exactly you want to make a change and what that change is. And even if you don't specifically know what the change is, that's okay. We'll figure it out because we'll kind of get to the center of it. And then we'll dive into those things that are holding us back, right? because those things that are holding us back are the things that we kind of want to get rid of, right? We want to address them so that they are no longer holding us back, but instead propelling us forward. So when we're in the session, we'll dive into those. We'll do a mix of the EFT, of the NLP practices to get to the root of it, to clear it out, and to put in new, better thoughts and new, better behaviors. And then we'll move over to the more practical steps that we can take. So I'll use a podcast as an example. Maybe when we want to start a podcast, a really good practical first step that we can take once we get all over all the fear of starting a podcast and all the fear of putting ourselves out there and the rejection and the fear of it not succeeding, all of those things, once we're able to address those things, we can say, hey, what is the very first thing that we can do to actually start this podcast? And that in itself can feel really overwhelming because most people go to, and I felt the same way when I started my podcast. I need to get all the equipment, or I need to get the editing software, or I need to get a podcast studio. And all those things seem like really big investments. They seem like really big lifts, especially when you're first starting out. So I always like to think smaller. So we have a big picture idea of what we want for our lives, but we want to think as small as possible in the tiny little steps that get us there. So with the podcast example, well, maybe instead of buying the equipment, you can just record the intro on your phone in the voice recording app, or maybe you can just write it in your notes, or maybe you can just get in front of your camera real quick and see how you feel with the camera recording you. All of those little tiny things that just help prepare you and help prepare your nervous system for what the real deal is actually going to feel like.
No, that's amazing. And I think a lot of times, to your point, people psych themselves out, right? They see
Yes.
the whole picture and they get overwhelmed and they're like, all right, where do I start? So
Yes.
you try to break it down step by step and guide people so that
Mhm.
you're essentially forming smaller goals that are attainable and then kind
Mhm.
of elevate to the bigger one. Is that correct?
Yes, 100%. You summed it up perfectly. Another example of that, I'll just go back to the gym thing. And this is something that I dealt with personally in my life recently. I used to be way more physically active than I have been recently. And so I was going through all this guilt and all this regret of, and all these like hard feelings of why have I not been doing this anymore? So I dealt with those. And then I realized once I actually started going back to the gym that the old routine that I was doing just wasn't working anymore. It was too intense for me. I felt like I didn't have enough time. It felt too hard, even though it was something I had already done in the past. So something that I did, I just pared down what I was doing a lot more. So instead of doing 7 exercises, I was only doing 4. Instead of running, I was walking. So I just made it a lot more attainable for me in a way that felt like I was giving myself easy wins. Because when you show yourself those tiny little easy wins, you can surpass it. You can do more exercises if you want to one day, if you're having more energy. But when you give yourself those little wins, those are all little signals to your brain and to your nervous system that, oh, all of a sudden this is safe. Each win is another step towards safety with your brain and with your nervous system. So the more wins that you can give yourself, the faster you're actually going to get to the finish line.
No, that's great. And a lot of times, we don't even understand why we're having that anxiety. And maybe there is
Mhm.
a higher message on the back end. Maybe it's like, hey, I was doing too much and my body was depleting and I didn't even
Mhm.
realize it. So I think our body does, like you said, it's designed to protect us.
Right.
It's doing those small steps, even if it's like a percentage of what the end goal is, to
Right.
at least just get it started, right?
Mhm. Oh, yeah, to just get it started, I mean, even if you're getting a 10th of a percent forward, that's still a 10th of a percent forward, and it's still farther than you were the day before, and I know that sounds really cliché, but that's how real success is built, and I think we've been kind of conditioned with social media and with TikTok and with Instagram, where we see all these people blow up what seems like overnight, but they didn't blow up overnight. It's the truth is that there's been so much going on in the background for years and years and years and years and years that we just didn't have the privilege of seeing. So Tate McRae, if you're familiar with her, she's a really good example of that, where she started off in a career in dancing. And then now she's this big famous singer that got discovered off of TikTok. But part of her spiel and part of her appeal is her dance skills. And so it's been literally years. She was dancing ever since she was a child. So that's not an overnight success. That's years and years and years of work that she's put in order to get to where she is now. And it's that compounding, it's almost like compounding interest. At first, the slope is going to be just really, really slight, but then all of a sudden it goes up like that once you reach a certain point.
No, and I think to your point, a lot of times with social media and seeing things, looks are deceiving, right?
Mhm.
Everybody has their own story, their own struggles daily. And to your point, it takes a lot of time, energy, and effort to build to these points where you're even getting recognized on some of these platforms. So it's like
Yes.
no one has any clue or notion. They just feel that it's supposed to be automated. It's not.
Right.
It's
Right.
totally not a like a realistic perspective
Mhm.
online, I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. And to your point, I mean, we don't have the privilege of seeing all their tears. We don't have the privilege of seeing all the hard work and all the frustration that goes on behind the scenes. The only thing that we really get to see is the polished video that they put up afterwards. And I think a lot of creators have tried to do a better job of this, of bringing their authentic selves to social media. But even still, when they're doing that, it's still a video that they chose to share. We didn't get to see them break down to their husbands. We didn't get to see the way that their babies threw up on their shirt before they recorded that video. So then they had to go change to a different shirt, even though it is an authentic video. I mean, we don't get to see all those parts of it. And I think it's just really nice to remind ourselves that progress isn't perfect. It's never going to be perfect. It's always going to be up and down and side to side. And as long as you're doing just what you can that day and just a little bit better that day, then that's what really matters, is just keeping going and not giving up just because it gets a little bit hard.
And I'm sure you can relate to this notion as well, right? Our best is going to change on a daily
Right.
basis, depending upon what we have going on, whether we're feeling okay or we've had a number of different traumas happen that day.
Mhm.
So, again, I think, being realistic about expectations and about real life, I
Mhm.
think that's probably a hard notion, probably for some of your clients or just the generalized public that come in and they're expecting like overnight they're supposed
Yes.
to be this new person, right? So,
Right.
how do you kind of perceive and bring it down to earth for some of these people that come in expecting to change the next day?
Right. That is such a good question, and it's a little bit different for everybody, right? Because for some people that is a little bit more prevalent, the fear of that they're falling behind everybody else. And for me, it's just reminding everybody that you shouldn't be comparing yourself to other people, because again, you're not seeing all the struggles that they went through. But even celebrities, even people that are really famous, even the sports, the athletes, they all have really hard days. And especially as women, we have our hormonal cycles that kind of dictate a lot of what we do and a lot of our energy. So there's going to be certain times of the month that we feel great, we feel like we have all the energy in the world, we feel like we can get everything done and take over the world. That's amazing, and you can totally harness and utilize that energy when you have it, but rest is just as important for our growth as those big momentum days. So, especially as a woman, as I just said, when we're in our cycle and when we're on the stage of our cycle where we have a little bit less energy, where we're feeling really tired, or maybe when we're feeling a little bit irritable, that actually is our body signaling to us that we need something else in that moment, because you can't build success on an empty battery. It's just never going to work, because eventually you're going to run out of the fumes that you're trying to fuel yourself on. So the rest is just as important as the momentum is, because with you should be building a life that you love to live. So if you're sitting here putting all this work into a life that you don't like, then what's the purpose of it? You should be enjoying your life along the way, not just working to get to the end goal.
No, and that's so true. And I think a lot of people, they don't have that perception of, hey, it's hard right now, but I can still enjoy life while I'm going through these obstacles, right? We
Yes.
can't wait to experience and be happy. We have to experience it throughout any type of turmoil, right?
Right. Right. And if you don't, if you're always waiting to experience happiness when you get to the end goal, you're never actually going to experience that happiness, because the end goal is always moving. Like, I look back on my life, and you get to the end goal, and then all of a sudden you have a new goal in mind, because you reached it, you reached the pinnacle of what you want to do, and then now you're growing again, and maybe you're growing in a different direction. So if you're always just waiting to be happy, you're never going to be happy. And that's kind of it's almost like, I think oxymoron is the correct word, is that if you're waiting for happiness, it's never going to come, but if you just choose to be happy now, then everything else is going to be so much easier.
And that's so true. I think practicing gratitude and gratefulness too, that is
Mhm.
like we've talked to you and I privately and
Mhm.
on your show about frequency, right? That
Yes.
changes different frequencies of,
Mhm.
and we talk about the law of attraction. You attract
Mhm.
what you put out. So
Yes.
can we let's talk a little bit about that. And I know you're very versed in that subject matter as well. What are your thoughts on frequency and putting out, and getting what you put out?
Yes, absolutely. I love this question because I think it is so relevant because the energy of what we put out, we are energetic beings. I 100% believe that. When you think of our little atoms that we're made up of, at least when I was in school, it was still the model where it was like the one center like molecule surrounded by the other little molecules, kind of like how we look at the solar system, but our atoms aren't actually like that. I think it's like 99.9% of an atom is just empty space. And it's not even a solid like circle like we picture it as. It's actually just like this ball of energy that's moving around. And so we are literally energetic beings, and we naturally pick up on the frequency of the people around us. And so the best way to put it is that people have a bullshit detector. They can tell when you're lying to them, and people can pick up on the frequency that you're putting out, and so can the universe. So when you're sitting here just begging and pleading for all these things to happen, that's the energy that you're actually in. You're in the begging and pleading energy. So you're going to get more situations that make you beg and plead. But when you stop, you pause, and you decide to be intentional about how you're spending your time and how you're spending your energy, the universe is going to send you more of that. And it's kind of frustrating because when you're in those moments, when it feels like you need something, then that's when you want it to come through. But I was actually listening to someone else talk about this, and she was talking about it in a financial sense. She was like, the people that always have the most money coming towards them are the people that need it the least. And it's so funny when you put it that way, but it's so true because they have come to a neutral point when it comes to money. And so the money just loves to flow to that person because there's somebody that already is attracting the money. And so that's something that we work on a lot too, is getting to that state. And if you want to be somebody that's making more money, for example, but you don't have that much financial income right now, that's okay. You can focus on other ways that you're actually really abundant in your life. And then you're going to start living in that abundant vibration. And then more abundance is just going to be coming to you. It's kind of like, that's what lucky girl syndrome is kind of based off of, is just someone believes that they're lucky, and so they're lucky.
No, and that's such a good point, right? We talk about financial freedom. It's on
Mhm.
the same residency and bioresonance as self-love. So you
Mhm.
have a lot of people out there, they're hustling, they're doing everything right. They think, but the financial piece has not come to fruition yet. And
Mhm.
a lot of times it's like, okay, they haven't mastered that component of self-love to the
Yes.
point where they love themselves enough and that financial abundance just flows through them.
Mhm. Oh,
Um, I
yeah.
I feel like that's a huge roadblock I've seen in the holistic realm too, when people talk about financial disruption or not coming to fruition for their financial piece.
Right, exactly. And it's so funny because these little frequencies can show up in really sneaky ways. So talking about the financial piece again too, obviously we all would love to be financially abundant, right? Like I think nobody questions that we want to be able to provide for our families and go on vacation when we want to and have all those really nice things. So logically we know like, hey, I want enough money. I want more money. I want to be well off financially. But there's sometimes these sneaky little beliefs in the background that can actually be hindering your progress there. So a good example of this is if you think wealthy people or if you think rich people are bad people or if you think they're evil. Obviously, you're not ever going to become a rich person if you think rich people are evil and if you do not think you yourself are an evil person. So that belief is a sneaky belief that people can have that's kind of hindering their financial success from actually coming to them.
So, how do we reframe for people that may not have the most upright or upbeat attitude towards certain things, or they have that black cloud, we'll call it,
Mhm.
um, you know, of turmoil over them? How
Mhm.
would you kind of guide them on how to get out of that frequency? Because it's a frequency it's been self-induced for a long period of time, typically. How do we
Mhm.
get someone out of that?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and we've all been in that spiral before, right? Where just one bad thing happens and everything else starts to just everything else starts to break, right? When it rains, it pours. My favorite thing to do, and this is something you can do in a very practical way, and it's something that I actually read from Abraham Hicks, and it's called a gratitude spiral. So I literally, when I feel myself going to a really dark place, and this is something that can be maybe it's just a day long thing, but I literally look at my hand at the palm of my hand. And I'm like, wow, I'm so grateful that I have fingers that I can pick things up with. I am so grateful that I have a body that I can move around with very easily. I'm so grateful that I'm healthy. I'm so grateful that I actually have food to fuel my body. I'm so grateful that I have a roof over my head so that I'm not out in the cold. I'm so grateful that I have friends that check in on me. I'm so grateful that I have dogs and a cat that love me. And then you can get bigger. So I'm so grateful that I have running water. I'm so grateful that I have heat in my house. I'm so grateful that I have covers on my bed. And it's so easy once you actually start looking at those positive things to find so many things to be grateful for and to feel positive about. And the good thing about this and why it's such a great, easy fix to do right off the bat is because you cannot have two conflicting thoughts at the same time. So you cannot sit there and think about all these grateful things that you're grateful for and at the exact same time be mad about something else. And so it's an instant mood lifter for when you're going down that spiral. And then long term, I would say we do just focus on the thoughts that we're having. And so we all have them. We all have negative thoughts pop into our head. But when you catch yourself and when you start being aware of the thoughts that you're having, something that I really like to do is to pause and stop myself from the negative thought and to instantly think of 3 things that are positive instead. So maybe you're somebody that struggles with body image issues and you catch yourself saying, oh God, I look so fat in this dress. That's a negative thought. It's not a helpful thought. So pause yourself and say 3 positive things that's related to that topic instead. So you know what? Instead of saying that you feel fat in that dress, you can say, you know what? I'm so grateful for the way that my legs look in this dress. Actually, I think my legs look great. I'm so happy about how I look in this color. Like this really is my color. Or you can even say something like I always get complimented on my eyelashes. I know that I have really pretty eyelashes. And so I'm like, and you know what? Like my eyes look amazing today. Just 3 things like that. That instantly starts to rewire your brain too. So instead of thinking negative thoughts automatically, you start to look for those positive features for that topic instead. And again, it's going to be a journey. It doesn't just happen overnight. You don't just have one positive thought and you're just suddenly a super positive person. It does take practice, but the more that you're able to catch yourself doing it, the faster that change is going to happen.
That's amazing. And, from a cognitive neuroscience perspective, exactly what you're stating, it really rewires your brain patterns to stop thinking these things when you're
Mhm.
adamantly, monitoring them, right? And
Mhm.
making sure that you're trying to engage with positive thinking and positive thoughts. So those are all really powerful things. And I think you're an amazing coach, and anyone that engages with you would be lucky to have you. And how do you actually bring some of your coaching into your podcast? Let's talk about your podcast for a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. The podcast I love. It's definitely one of my babies. But the podcast is, I mean, every single day, either I do solo episodes and I do episodes with guests as well. Obviously, Julie was actually everybody is listening who is listening. Julie was a guest on my podcast and her episode was amazing. But it's so cool because I get to have all these different people on and different perspectives for how to just have a better life for yourself. So Julie, you've come on recently. I've had a hypnotherapist come on who focuses on burnout for executives. I had a fertility doctor come on recently, and she takes more of a naturopathic approach to fertility rather than focusing on IVF treatments. So there's all these different ways that you can look at a problem, and there's just a million different solutions. And from a personal standpoint, that has been so powerful for me to experience because it shows me, hey, just because we're taught one thing doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually the right way to handle things. And it might be different for me, it might be different for someone else. But if you're one of those people that's feeling like, this doesn't feel right. This doesn't feel like it's what I'm supposed to be doing, but everybody else keeps telling you that you should be doing that thing. It is okay to be the only one, and it is okay to be standing by yourself a little while because you know your body best, and there is always another path if you don't like the one that you're on. Um,
Maybe-
Sorry,
No,
go ahead.
no, that's amazing. And you've had some beautiful guests. You've had Sherry Bennett and
Yes,
Allison Murden. So you've had some
yes,
wild and beautiful people on the show. So it's a nice collective of different types of women from different backgrounds. So
yes.
that's a beautiful thing. And I've always felt like, me personally on your show, like very comfortable. We had a deep intellectual conversation. Everything flowed smoothly. I've been on other shows where it's just like chaos, so
Yeah.
you really bring your concept of healing and positivity and calm and peace to your show as well. So
Oh,
I just
thank
want to
you.
congratulate that. It was an amazing experience. So I had a really positive experience on the show. So thank you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah, Sherry, they all have been such amazing guests, and I'm honestly so grateful for every single woman, and I've had male guests too. I'm so grateful for every single person that has been on the podcast because they do bring such unique perspectives, and it's just so cool to see all these different people out in the world doing their thing and making amazing things happen with what they're passionate about. So that's the biggest thing that's cool for me is that, wow, there's just so many people doing incredible things that I never would have had the opportunity, like with Allison, I never would have had the opportunity to speak with her or with Sherry if it hadn't been for the podcast, or with you if it hadn't been for the podcast, which I'm extremely grateful for.
Well, you do a wonderful job with everything. And I can't believe that the 40 minutes has almost flown by.
Oh
We're
my
down
goodness.
to our last few minutes. So, if anyone listening and watching today, if they want to get involved, they want to be a client in coaching, they want to support your podcast, let's talk a little bit about how they can do that and how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I do offer one-on-one coaching, and because we're going into the holidays, which can be stressful on a normal day, and if there's stuff going on in your life, it can be even more stressful. So I do have a sale going on for my coaching. It's 30% off. The code is Slaybell, so SLAY, like slay the day. SLAYBELLS 30, so 30. That's the code to get the 30% off on the coaching sessions. I also have an email list that you can sign up for. And when you sign up for the email list, you will get a free download. And that free download is one of my favorite things that I've ever created. It's the 3 secrets to creating magnetic energy right now. So I have some tips and tricks that you can do to just instantly shift your energy a little bit when you're in those blasé moments or when you're feeling down on yourself. So that's one of my favorites. You can sign up for the newsletter, which I send out a monthly newsletter. So I'm not inundating your inbox because I know that can get a little bit overwhelming as well. And then I'm also on all of the socials. So if you just need a little bit more time getting to know me, getting to know my content, then you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, Pinterest, LinkedIn, and Facebook, all at KRC Coaching as well. And yes, this is my website. So when you go to krccoaching.com, you'll see the pop-up for the free download. And then when you go to get started, that's where you can sign up for your coaching. If you do want to have if you want a little bit of one-on-one time with me before you actually commit to coaching, I do offer a free breakthrough call as well. So that's 30 minutes where we can start the process together and you can decide if it's a good fit, if we vibe well together, because I think that matters too. When you're picking out a coach, you should definitely be with somebody that you feel comfortable with. So that will be found on the Get Started page as well.
That's amazing. We appreciate everything. You're such a breath of fresh air. I hope everyone connects with Carly, whether it's to support a beautiful show or her amazing coaching. Carly, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us today, and we appreciate having you.
Yes, thank you so much for having me. This was great. Thank you so much.
Take care. Have the best day. And thank you guys for tuning in to USA Global TV and Radio and the Holistic Alternative. We'll see you again in another few weeks for another beautiful guest. Have a wonderful day and be kind to each other. Take care.
In a noisy world, true connection begins with listening. Elevated listening transforms every conversation in just 5 simple steps. Pause and breathe. Set your intention. Listen with curiosity. Reflect back. Agree on one next step. Join the Listening Mentor on Let's Finally Talk with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, where we help you find inner peace, one conversation at a time. Streaming every day, Let's Finally Talk TV show with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, only here on USA Global TV and Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to watch and engage with all our content.
In a world craving connection, one platform dared to dream bigger. USA Global TV and Radio, a beacon for global voices, authentic storytelling, and elevated listening. led by visionary Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. The journey from a spark to a global force is now captured in one inspiring book. Honored with YouTube's Silver Creator Award for surpassing 100,000 subscribers. Discover the evolution, the challenges, the triumphs, and the unstoppable spirit that created a global movement. Executive producer Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Music score by Yeffy Tang. Creative director Paul Garcia. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Now an Amazon #1 new release in paperback and ebook. Broadcasting Brilliance, the evolution of USA Global TV and Radio, is inspiring readers around the world. Join the movement that's redefining global media one story at a time.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honored to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USAGlobalTV. Follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning, and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dies. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.